More great news on the Second Amendment front. Just last week on a news report that I wanted to get to you a little bit earlier, but I got tied up with all this other breaking news we've had to deal with. Great news out of Washington, D.C. dealing with anti-arsenal laws, which basically are laws that restrict the number of guns you're allowed to own, the amount of ammunition you're allowed to own, or the amount of the same that you're allowed to possess or carry. In the District of Columbia, guess what? They had a rule, a regulation that said you could only carry 20 rounds of ammunition on you at any point in time in the District of Columbia, even with a concealed carry permit, which you are able to get in DC. Set that issue aside about sensitive places. The bottom line is the District of Columbia, under legal pressure from Dick Heller of Heller versus DC fame, actually made them repeal that rule. Great news. We'll talk about it more when we get back. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the U.S. Supreme Court Bar, and best-selling author. If you have not subscribed to the Four Boxes Diner YouTube channel or followed us on Twitter, please do so and help us spread the word about the right to keep and bear arms to more and more people. Okay, great news. We talked about these things called anti-arsenal laws several months ago. I brought this to your attention because I thought this is one angle the anti-gunners are going to try to go to, because these anti-arsenal laws are in Europe, which we do not want to emulate in any respect. My comment about Europe is it's a great place to visit. It's a wonderful museum, but you don't want to make a living there or have your rights respected there. That's my opinion. But set that issue aside. Bottom line is this. Anti-arsenal laws limit the number of guns you can own, the amount of ammunition you can own, the amount of ammunition or guns you can possess, etc., etc. In the District of Columbia, up until last week, they had a rule that says you could not carry on your body, unless, of course, you're law enforcement, more than 20 rounds of ammunition. Even if you had a concealed carry permit in D.C., you could not carry more than 20 rounds of ammunition on your body. Well, Dick Heller, the plaintiff in the famous Heller versus District of Columbia case in 2008 that gave rise to that Scalia decision, which we love, that says you have an individual right to keep and bear arms under the Second Amendment as part of the Bill of Rights, which protects individual rights. Well, Dick Heller sued the District of Columbia over this 20-round anti-arsenal law. And guess what? Right before the District of Columbia had to file legal papers justifying these laws with historical precedent, which of course, as you know from this channel, does not exist. They don't exist. Guess what happened? The District of Columbia, instead of filing a brief saying, we lose, the police chief down there submitted a request for an emergency regulation to remove the 20-round anti-arsenal regulation rule in effect. Basically saying, we're no longer going to enforce this 20-round rule on people that possess, essentially conceding the fact that they couldn't win the case. And instead of filing legal papers in the legal case, they decided they're going to race out there and on an emergency basis remove this regulation that prevents people from carrying more than 20 rounds of ammunition on their body on the streets of the District of Columbia. And what's interesting, I thought, is one of their justifications for that, and it's quite interesting, this is a direct quote from the District of Columbia. They said this emergency action to remove these regulations limiting ammunition carrying is, among other things, quote, to enable the district to avoid accruing liability for attorney's fees and legal challenges. Basically, they're saying, we're going to get our butt kicked and we're going to have to pay attorney's fees under the federal statute 42 U.S.C. 1988, which allows for attorney fees when you are prevailing party in a civil rights matter involving the Constitution, including the Second Amendment, by the way. Guess what? They said, we're going to get our butts kicked. We don't want to have to pay a bunch of attorney's fees to people like Dick Heller's attorneys and others. So therefore, get rid of this regulation right here, right now on an emergency basis. And that's what the District of Columbia is going to do. Again, another win, another brick in the wall we must build to support the Second Amendment. Every one of these wins, whether it be in D.C., in Colorado, in Texas, it doesn't matter. Every minor, major, whatever victory in favor of the right to keep and bear arms is a victory, because it's another brick that we can use to continue to build the wall around our right to keep and bear arms. And another brick was just put in place last week in the District of Columbia. Thank you again to Dick Heller for his great service to the Second Amendment and to America. We appreciate that. Okay, we'll talk to you soon here at the Four Boxes Diner. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and we'll see you again soon at the Four Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.